The story of this woman on the one hand is amazing, and on the other, even today it causes controversy among researchers and historians studying the crimes of Nazism. It is still unclear what motivated the girl who lived in prosperous Switzerland, had a good education, and was frankly very wealthy. Carmen Maria, or sometimes Castro Mori, was born to British doctor Ernest Emile Mori and Liana Bistkov. The story about Mori's mother is quite dark. The woman had Filipino roots and was considered the illegitimate daughter of Samuel Wertmüller Bistkov, a wealthy Swiss businessman. It is interesting that Bistkov had no children in official marriage, and his mistress, Leona's mother, lived in the businessman's house with his official wife, Anna Ramirez. After the illegitimate daughter was officially recognized by the father, Leona changed her surname to Bistkov. After Samuel's death in 1918, the mother claimed her rights to the businessman's property, despite the fact that his official wife was considered the main executor. Moreover, the woman quickly found a guardian, Ada Gamor. But the most surprising thing is that Leona was considered to be in an official marriage, in which she gave birth to 2 more children, which was stated with puzzlement even at the trial, which was held as part of the determination of inheritance rights. In general, the adventures of the mother and dad of the future Nazi criminal are confusing as the fate of Carmen Mari herself. The only thing that can be stated quite unequivocally is that Mari received a rather large share from the property of her illegitimate father. The girl received a very good education. According to some reports, she was fluent in 6 languages. Before the war, she managed to live in England, in Germany, and in France. But it was Germany that changed the whole life of a 26-year-old girl. Since 1932, Mari lived in Berlin and accepted the Nazi ideology with all her heart. Moreover, working as a journalist, she managed to make the necessary acquaintances and connections, thanks to which, soon in 1934, she was enlisted in the ranks of secret agents of the Gestapo at her own request. In fact, Mori volunteered to serve the Nazis at the very beginning of the bloody path of Nazi Germany. It should be emphasized again that this decision was voluntary. Mori's initial assignments were simple enough: spying on her compatriots in Germany, France, and Switzerland. In order to understand the mood of the anti-fascist in a neutral neighbor country, the Gestapo repeatedly sent Mori to Switzerland to collect the necessary information. Later, the girl was sent to France. Here is the list of spy tasks, is called differently by various researchers. Some are sure that Mori continued to spy on German migrants. Others that Mori was collecting information in the area of the Maginot Defensive Line. Perhaps Mori was working 2 jobs at the same time. Be that as it may, but soon in 1938 the French intelligence arrested the spy, and 2 years later a court sentenced Mori to death. And here Providence intervened. Again, it is not known for certain who helped the Gestapo spy, either the goodwill of the President of France or the intervention of the good friend of her rich dad, who at that time had considerable weight in France. However, Mori was pardoned, and a few weeks later, France fell. Some researchers claim that the pardon was because Carmen Mori agreed with French intelligence to become a double agent. Whether this is so or not, there is no information. But there are some indirect confirmations. First, the Gestapo did not believe the spy. Arrested in the autumn of 1940 by the Germans, Mori was taken from France by plane to Berlin, where the head of the Gestapo, Heydrich, personally interrogated the woman for 3 weeks. This little-known fact suggested that Mori was of considerable value to the German secret police during her Gestapo assignments. After numerous interrogations, Mori was released on a promise never to leave Germany. It is known that Heydrich planned to use her as an agitator on a German radio station that broadcasted to France and Britain. Perhaps this would have happened, but for unclear reasons, Mori at some point attempted to leave Germany in defiance of the order. As a result, instead of a position at the radio station, the woman was sent to the Ravensbrück concentration camp. What Mori did up until 1944 is practically unknown. She may have originally worked as an informer for Ludwig Remner, who was in charge of the Gestapo camp service. There is practically no information about this, but many refer to some indirect evidence. Be that as it may, Mori gradually managed to curry favor in the camp, having received the position of camp capo. This is the head of the barracks. Unlike other prisoners, the capos lived in a separate fenced room in the same barracks. They had quite a few advantages, the main of which was enhanced nutrition and the absence of the need to go to work. But in order for these privileges to be preserved, capos had to serve not out of fear, but out of conscience. And Carmen Mori served in such a way that, according to witnesses, even the camp guards themselves, seasoned SS men, were afraid of her. Basically, Carmen Mori worked in the 10th medical block, where there were women with mental illness and tuberculosis patients. According to the testimony of witnesses, Mori was distinguished by inhumane, some kind of bestial cruelty. Carmen's favorite pastime was the ruthless beating of barracks patients. Moreover, she especially liked to mock the mentally ill, often beating them to death. By the way, the healthy inhabitants of the barracks were also not protected from Mori's madness. She beat them with no less cruelty and fury. Interestingly, at the trial, the testimony against Mori was quite contradictory. Some witnesses assured that the woman even tried to help prisoners. Some, on the contrary, spoke only about constant beatings. In total, at least 60 deaths of the prisoners of the camp were proved, in which Mori was personally to blame. In other words, at least 6 dozen people were beaten to death by Carmen. Mori was also accused of taking a personal part in the selection of prisoners in the gas chambers, as well as of seizing children from prisoners. The fate of the kids in that camp was the same: death in the gas chamber. By the way, according to the Jewish organization Yad Vashem, which studies the crimes of the Nazis, Carmen Mori was considered one of the most terrible and cruel capos in Ravensbrück. It is no coincidence that among the prisoners she had the nickname Black Angel of Ravensbrück. Having only a stick, Mori did such crazy things that, we repeat, it surprised even the most cruel guards. The woman achieved incredible skills in beating prisoners, and such that the prisoners died a long and painful death. In the barrack, as already mentioned, there were patients who fell ill with tuberculosis. They were perhaps even more afraid of Mori than they were of the gas chamber. Some witnesses testified that the capo deliberately beat the prisoners on the chest, watching how they began to suffer from suffocation. Mori absolutely deserved the nickname Black Angel. In addition, like many psychopathic personalities, Mori also had deviation in terms of sexual relations. Feelings for members of the opposite sex were foreign to her. All her so-called love poured out on her colleague Dr. N. Spray, who was known in the camp under the nickname Dr. Claude. Insatiable in pleasures, Mori met the same feelings from Spray. True, for the sake of justice, it must be said that Spray did not catch up with her beloved in terms of cruelty, although she herself took part in the torture of prisoners. Unlike Mori, Spray managed to get away with being acquitted. Only in France for crimes against French citizens, Spray was sentenced to exile from the country for 25 years. When at the trial in Hamburg, the first trial conducted by the British military tribunal over the personnel of Ravensbrück, all the named charge of torturing prisoners were brought, Carmen Mori categorically denied her guilt. This is not true, but if it was necessary, I would certainly do it, and then I would admit it now. Interestingly, after the release of Ravensbrück, moreover, she quickly and accurately followed all the orders of the British. For example, when she was asked to show who among the prisoners was a doctor or warden, the woman quickly pointed to them. In fact, Mori contributed to the arrest of the criminals of Ravensbrück. It is possible that the woman hoped for a pardon. However, this did not happen. And again, at the trial she behaved more than strangely. At first, Mori generally left the witness stand, after which the guards took her to the dock. During the interrogation, Mori categorically denied her guilt, often spoke without waiting for questions, and generally behaved not like an accused, but like a journalist who was on trial. This was noted both in the court records and in the memoirs of those who were present at the trial. The fact that Mori was fluent in foreign languages also played a role, so she did not have to wait for a translation. However, in spite of everything, Carmen Mori was called guilty and sentenced in 1947 to death by hanging. But the woman did not wait for the loop and opened her veins in the cell. Ironically enough, before her death, she wrote a letter to the British military prosecutor in which she regretted that she did not manage to live up to be hanged. "I'm sorry, but I can't wait for your British execution."